It was a stormy Friday night when I decided to order food delivery. I was home alone. The rain pounded against the windows, and the wind howled like a chorus of tortured souls. I scrolled through my usual delivery app and found a new place I hadn't seen before, the Midnight Diner. Its menu was filled with odd, yet intriguing dishes. With a shrug, I ordered a burger and fries, figuring I'd give it a shot. Estimated delivery time, 45 minutes. I settled onto the couch, put on a horror movie, and tried to ignore the unsettling atmosphere outside. The movie's suspenseful scenes didn't help much. I kept glancing at the clock and the dark corners of my living room, feeling a strange unease creeping over me. The storm outside intensified, and I began to feel an irrational sense of dread. Every creak and groan of the house seemed amplified. 45 minutes passed, then an hour, but still no delivery. I checked the app. My order was marked as delivered. Confused and annoyed, I called the restaurant, but the line was dead. I considered just making something at home when the doorbell rang. I jolted up, my heart pounding. Who could it be at this hour? I peered through the peephole and saw a figure in a dark, hooded raincoat standing in the downpour. The face was obscured, but I could see the glint of wet plastic bags in their hand. Relieved, I opened the door. The delivery person didn't say a word, just handed me the bags and turned to leave. I tried to call out a thank you, but the words caught in my throat. There was something off about their movement, a jerky, unnatural grace that sent shivers down my spine. I quickly shut the door, bolted it, and brought the bags to the kitchen. As I unpacked the food, the oddness continued. The burger was neatly wrapped, but the paper felt strangely old, like it had been stored for decades. The fries were cold and had an unusual, almost metallic smell. I hesitated, but hunger won out, and I bit into the burger. Instantly, a wave of nausea hit me. The taste was rancid, a mix of rot and decay. I spat it out, horrified, and tossed the food into the trash. My stomach churned, and I felt dizzy. I went to the sink to rinse my mouth, and when I looked up, I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the window's reflection, standing behind me, was the figure from the door, dripping wet and motionless. I spun around, but the kitchen was empty. My heart pounded in my chest, and I backed away, bumping into the counter. The lights flickered, and a low, guttural whisper filled the room. "Thank you for inviting me in," it said. Panic set in, and I ran to the front door, yanking it open in a desperate bid for escape. But the storm had transformed. The rain was now a thick, red liquid, like blood, and the howling wind carried faint, ghostly wails. I stumbled back inside, slamming the door shut, my mind racing. What had I done? The whispering grew louder, echoing through the house. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on forms that seemed to reach out to me with clawed hands. I fumbled for my phone, but it was dead. The power flickered again, then went out completely, plunging the house into darkness. In the pitch black, I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving closer. I crouched in a corner, trying to control my breathing. The footsteps stopped, and I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. "I'm hungry," the voice hissed. Suddenly, the lights came back on, and I was alone in the silence. Trembling, I stood up and cautiously looked around. Everything seemed normal, but the food bags were gone. I grabbed my keys and bolted out of the house, driving to a friend's place without looking back. I never ordered from the Midnight Diner again. In fact, I couldn't find any trace of it on the app the next day. The experience left me shaken, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something truly sinister. Now, every time the doorbell rings late at night, I hesitate, half expecting to see that dark, hooded figure standing there, waiting to be invited in again. So, the next time you decide to order in, remember my story. Some deliveries bring more than just food. Scrolling through my usual food delivery app, I stumbled upon a new listing, Elysian Eats. The logo was a simple, elegant design of a golden fork and knife crossed over a plate. With a menu of comfort food and gourmet dishes, I figured I'd give it a try. I ordered a pasta dish and a dessert, estimating the delivery time at an hour. While I waited, I decided to relax and watch TV. An old, forgotten horror movie played, the soundtrack filling the room. I glanced at the time occasionally, the hours stretching longer than I expected. The show was just reaching its climax when the doorbell finally rang. I checked my phone. It had been almost 2 hours. I hurried to the door, irritation mixing with hunger. I swung it open to find a delivery person standing there, a friendly smile on his face. He wore a pristine white uniform with the Elysian Eats logo embroidered on the pocket. "Sorry for the delay," he said, his voice smooth and calming. "I hope the meal makes up for it." I nodded, taking the bags he handed me. The packaging was exquisite, far nicer than any delivery I'd ever received. The delivery person lingered for a moment, his smile never wavering. "Enjoy your meal," he added, before turning and walking down the dimly lit corridor. Something about the way he moved struck me as odd, almost as if he glided rather than walked. Shaking off the unease, I brought the bags into the kitchen. The food smelled divine. I plated the pasta and set the dessert aside, eager to dig in. As I twirled the first forkful of pasta, I noticed a small card tucked beneath the container. It read, "A taste of paradise." I took a bite. The flavors were incredible, each mouthful better than the last. I found myself eating faster, savoring every sensation. But as I continued, a strange sensation crept over me. The room seemed to grow warmer, the lights dimmer. My vision blurred slightly, and I felt a sudden, inexplicable sense of euphoria. I set the fork down, taking a moment to steady myself. That's when I noticed the room's transformation. The walls seemed to shimmer, the colors shifting subtly. Shadows danced at the edges of my vision, and the air felt thick with an otherworldly presence. I reached for my phone to call someone, anyone, but the screen was dead. Panic set in, and I stood up, the room swaying around me. That's when I heard it, a soft, melodic whisper, like a lullaby sung in a foreign tongue. It was beautiful yet haunting. I followed the sound, my movements feeling dreamlike and slow. It led me to the dessert, a small, elaborately decorated cake. The whispering grew louder, more insistent. I should have thrown it away, should have called for help, but I found myself unable to resist. I cut a small piece and tasted it. The flavor was indescribable, a perfect blend of sweetness and richness that sent a shiver down my spine. The whispers grew to a crescendo, wrapping around me, pulling me into a trance. Suddenly, I was no longer in my kitchen. I stood in a vast, opulent hall filled with golden light. The walls were lined with mirrors, reflecting infinite versions of myself, each one slightly different. In the center of the hall stood a grand table laden with food, more luxurious than anything I had ever seen. A figure approached, draped in flowing, ethereal robes. Their face was obscured by a glowing veil, but their presence was overwhelmingly powerful. "Welcome," the figure intoned, their voice the same whisper that had guided me. "You have tasted the food of the gods and are now one with us." Fear gripped me. I tried to speak, but no words came out. The figure extended a hand, beckoning me to join the feast. My legs moved of their own accord, and I found myself seated at the table, unable to resist the pull. As I ate, I felt myself changing, my mind fracturing and reforming in ways I couldn't comprehend. Time lost all meaning. I was both here and elsewhere, part of a realm beyond human understanding. Days, or perhaps years, passed before I found myself back in my kitchen. The food was gone, the table clean. My phone buzzed to life, showing multiple missed calls and messages. I glanced at the clock. It was as if no time had passed. I tried to tell my friends, but no one believed me. The restaurant, Elysian Eats, had vanished from the app, leaving no trace. The experience haunted me, the whispers occasionally returning in the dead of night, reminding me of the paradise I had tasted and the price I had paid. It was late on a Friday night when I decided to order food. I was exhausted from a long week and didn't feel like cooking. Scrolling through my delivery app, I noticed a new place called Haunted Bites. The name was strange, but their menu looked fantastic, full of comfort food and unique dishes. I figured it was a gimmick to attract attention. I ordered a burger and a side of garlic fries, expecting the usual 45-minute wait. As I settled in to watch TV, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I chalked it up to the stress and fatigue, focusing on the show to distract myself. An hour passed, then another. My stomach growled angrily, and I checked the app again. My order was marked as delivered, but there had been no knock at the door. I called the restaurant, but the call went straight to voicemail. Annoyed, I considered calling it a loss and making a sandwich when there was a soft knock on the door. I peered through the peephole and saw no one. Confused, I opened the door cautiously. There, on the doormat, was my food, neatly packaged in a plain black bag. No delivery person in sight. A chill ran down my spine, but I was too hungry to care. I brought the bag inside, ignoring the unease creeping over me. The food smelled delicious, almost too good. I unwrapped the burger, noticing it was still warm despite the delay. As I took a bite, I was overwhelmed by the rich, savory flavors. It was, without a doubt, the best burger I'd ever had. I quickly devoured it, moving on to the fries, which were equally incredible. As I finished my meal, I felt a sudden wave of drowsiness. I tried to stand up, but my legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the couch. My vision blurred, and my body felt heavy. Panic set in, but I couldn't move or speak. The room around me grew darker, shadows lengthening and twisting. In the dim light, I saw movement. A figure stepped out of the shadows, tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. It wore tattered, old-fashioned clothes and moved with an eerie grace. "Welcome to Haunted Bites," it said in a voice that echoed in my mind. "We hope you enjoyed your last meal." My heart raced, but my body remained paralyzed. The figure glided closer, and I noticed others emerging from the darkness, all with the same hollow eyes and spectral presence. They surrounded me, their whispers filling the room. "Join us," they chanted. "One of us. One of us." I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figures closed in, and the room went completely dark. I felt a cold, clammy hand grip my arm, and everything went black. I woke up in my living room, drenched in sweat. The sun was shining through the windows, and the house was silent. I looked around, expecting to see the spectral figures, but there was nothing. The black bag was gone, and there was no sign of the food. Shaken, I checked my phone. It was morning, and I had dozens of missed calls and messages from friends. I tried to explain what happened, but no one believed me. They said I must have fallen asleep and had a nightmare. Determined to prove it was real, I searched for Haunted Bites on the delivery app, but it was gone. There was no record of my order, no trace of the restaurant ever existing. Days turned into weeks, and the experience haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the figures were still out there, waiting. I stopped ordering delivery, too afraid of what might arrive at my door. One night, as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard a soft knock on the door. My heart pounded as I crept to the peephole. There was no one there, but a plain black bag sat on the doormat. My blood ran cold as I stared at it, paralyzed by fear. I never opened the door. The bag disappeared by morning, but the terror remained. Now, every time I hear a knock late at night, I remember the hollow eyes and the chilling whispers. Some meals, I learned, come with a price that can never be paid in full.